What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the coolest homesteading channel on the internet, Homesteading Off the Grid. It's almost dark. I intentionally put tonight's October night story off until almost dark. We're at the top of the hill where field meets forest. There's a light fog because it just rained, and we're even closer to Halloween than we were last night, so the veil should be pretty thin. Look back there behind me, and you'll see all those light spaces where you can see the sun, which is already down behind the horizon, but you can see the light coming through the trees. Watch for movement. There's no breeze, there's no wind, so if you see those spaces of light fill up with darkness, even just briefly like that, that was not wind. There's no wind, no breeze. Something's back there. Oh yeah, they're in the trees like crazy here. So hope you've been enjoying these readings. These are some really nice spooky stories, and once again this evening we're going to read from True Hauntings, Real Stories of People's Personal Experiences with Paranormal, Supernatural, Cryptids, UFOs, Aliens, Volume 4, the newest one to come out. All these are available on Amazon and print and Kindle. We've got a couple of stories submitted by viewers. Teresa Nevels is first. She regularly submits to these volumes. If you have a story that you would like us to share on the channel and have printed in one of the True Volumes upcoming series, the True Hauntings volume series, send it to the channel. The email address is crazylake@mail.com. Okay? Now let's get to the story with no further ado. As my beautiful bride dearly, aka Giggly Girl, would say. You know, last night I was talking about the Inside Out hat and how people just lost their shit because of that, and so I continue to do it. That's also why I always introduce my wife as my beautiful bride dearly, aka Giggly Girl, because I did that a couple times, and like people lost their shit over that. They're like, "Do you have to say that every time? Can't you just say my wife? Can't you just say dearly?" So many people were losing their shit. Guys, I guess originally, back in the old days when like, did you hear that tree knock? Listen, I was an a-hole a lot because it kept people coming back to tell me off and cuss me out and insult me and all that stuff. So I would stir the stew with the Inside Out hat and pet names for my wife. But that tree knock and the one we heard last night and that we hear regularly and all this crap walking around in the background, I have never intentionally done any of that. That crap just shows up. So you watch for it as we read this story. Actually, two stories. So the first one is called The Unknown Tenant, submitted by Teresa Nevels. East Lake/Orient Park is an area of Tampa, Florida. My daughter Jensen and granddaughter Sophie Jo lived there with her boyfriend's family until the house was sold. The house itself was built in 1959 and survived many hurricanes. However, the history of the house and the street are unknown. Sophie Jo is a very inquisitive, active child. She talks a lot for a 3-year-old and is not afraid of much. So when Jensen heard her talking in the room by herself, she didn't think anything of it. Jensen would be getting ready for work, and she assumed Sophie was playing with her toys. She would look in on her, and it would appear that Sophie was actually looking at someone and having a conversation. This happened on several occasions. When asked who she was talking to, Sophie would look at her mom or whoever asked and point to an empty area of the room. Several times, a ball would roll down the hall out of nowhere to Sophie. She'd be watching her favorite show, Coco Melon, and the ball would come rolling down the hall into the living room. Sophie would just laugh and kick it away. Other times, items would go missing and show up in odd places they didn't belong. The family knew they had an entity, but they'd gotten used to it. I don't know if the new buyers of the house have discovered they have an unknown tenant that came with their property. The end. Wow, that's creepy. And you know what? That's an example that, you know, if you got a story you want shared with everybody, it doesn't have to be 1,000,000 miles long. It can be just 5 paragraphs like that one, short, sweet, and to the point. Isn't that something? A lot of folks believe that children and animals can see things that we adults cannot. And of course, she might just grow up. Little girl might grow up to be an adult that can see, because there are some of us that can. Don't those crickets sound beautiful? All right, let's get on with the next story. He Came to Say Goodbye, submitted by Lisa Stokes. Lisa, I hope you're watching. Dear Crazy Lake, I have been following your channel, Homesteading Off the Grid, ever since you made the neighbor in the crayon video. I had an annoying neighbor at the time, and though the crayon tactic wasn't exactly something that would work for me, I found you to be a kindred spirit, so I continued watching your channel. My neighbor, in time, took care of himself. He's doing a stint in a state prison right now for bank fraud. Turns out it wasn't his first conviction for fraud, and his days of warnings were over. It all comes home to roost because karma is real. I agree. Anyway, this is an email about a paranormal experience I believe I had about 10 years ago. It had to have been. There is no other way to explain what happened. I'm giving you my full permission to use my story in any way you want, either on your YouTube channel, in one of your books, or both, which we're doing. And you can use my name. I don't give a damn what people think. I'm over 50. So I have a friend who lives just up the street from me, 4 houses up. I've known her since we were in high school. She married a guy who was not a bad guy at all. He was a good guy. And it's not that I ever disliked him. I just never liked him. Do you know what I mean? He was one of those people who were just annoying. I feel mean by saying this. I mean, the guy didn't have a mean bone in his body. He meant no ill will toward anyone. He was just, well, annoying. Whenever he would talk, I would be thinking, God, get me out of here. And fortunately, I know people like that. So one morning, I'd been out jogging, and I was making my way up the drive when I looked up, and here comes her husband, walking down the sidewalk right toward me. Oh no, I mumbled. I have to shower and head to work, I said in his direction, and then I ran into the house and shut and locked the door. When I got in the house, my phone was ringing, and when I answered it, it was my friend, the man's wife, and she was crying so badly while she was talking that I couldn't understand her. I literally had to hang up the phone and run up to her house to ask her what was wrong. When I went back outside, her husband wasn't there anymore, and I thought, wow, I'm such a jerk. Here he was, coming to get me to help her for some reason, and I ran away from him. Anyway, when I got to her house, there was a county sheriff's deputy there with her, and she was on the porch with this cop, and she was just crying her eyes out. Kevin, the Lord is my witness. The cop told me that her husband had been killed in an auto accident on his way to work that morning. A tractor trailer had tried to beat him at a red light and plowed right into the side of his car, killing him instantly. Kevin, I know for a fact that I saw her husband coming toward me that morning after I'd finished my jog. I know for a fact that I spoke to him and then ran and hid from him. I know for a fact he was coming to tell me goodbye. There are certainly things in this world that cannot be explained, and after my experience, the one I've described here, I will never judge anyone else and their experiences again. Please continue to entertain us masses on social media. Lisa Stokes. The end. Wow, Lisa, that was an amazing story. Something's coming out of those woods, which means it's time for me to go home. Send us your stories if you got them. The email address is crazylake@mail.com. Thanks for being here for another reading for an October night. Hope to see you tomorrow night for more.